Welcome back to the garage where we're going to continue work on this E30 project I have behind me. Now in the last video we fixed a lot of the rust that was at the driver's side front end of the car, including the floorboards, firewall, and the jack pad rocker panel area. And that went fairly well. I mean, there's no more holes anyway. But now it's time to turn our attention to the driver's side rear of the car, particularly where the wheel well meets the rocker panel, and inside of the wheel well where the spring perch is, there's a hole there, and then back near where the trunk is, there's a couple holes that are forming there. This should be a little bit easier than the front of the car because I don't have to deal with any interior removal. But there's still a lot of thin metal that I have to make sure I don't blow through with the welder. There's also some cosmetic metal that I had to put in, meaning it's got to look decently good when I'm done with it. So that alone will be a new thing, having to actually make it look good after I'm done welding. So just as a refresher, let's take a look at the metal I need to replace. Alright, so the first area I'm going to attack is this rear wheel well arch going into the rocker panel. You can see it's pretty well rusted out in that corner. I'm going to have to cut it all out and grind it back and see where the real metal starts and where the bad metal stops. Remember, it's got a rotted hole down here at that pinch weld along the rocker panel, and then there's one hole kind of further on up which we'll have to deal with as well. And then we've got the hole in the rear spring perch. We'll have to undo the rear shock, pull out the spring so we have more access to get to that hole. And then we've got some holes back here near where the trunk is. Those are less problematic, but they're still unsightly, so we'll need to grind all that away and see what metal we actually need to replace in there. So obviously there's a lot of work ahead, so let's get to it. Okay, so I finally got the inner part of this rear rocker panel and fender well area kind of welded up. Let's take a look at it. So you can see that I had to put a new piece right here. It's like the inner section of the rocker panel, and right behind here is where the subframe bushing is. So this was all missing. You can see that I've kind of patched in a piece there. Again, not pretty, but it's not going anywhere. And then the same idea back here in the fender well and the inner part of the wheel well and rocker. This was kind of complicated. There was 6 separate pieces I need to make in order to finish that up. It's just a complex area, and a lot of the metal was already missing, so I didn't have much to use as a template. But, you know, again, that's not going anywhere. It's pretty strong, and it'll give me something to spot weld the outer skin to. And then any sort of remaining crevices, like back here, there will be a gap. I'll go in there and fill that with the seam sealer, because I think that's how it would have been from the factory anyways. If not, it's gonna be how it is now. So yeah, all I need to do is create the skin for the outer section here, which is gonna be easier said than done, but I'll get it done some way or the other. Okay, so I guess that's all there is to see about that. Let's continue on and make the outer skin. Okay, now that I've got this corner of the wheel arch finished up, reskinned and now pretty structurally sound, it's time to move on to some of the holes in the back side of the wheel well. After we do that, we're gonna need to address the hole in the rear spring perch. Let's get to it. Okay, so with that rear spring perch hole now finally sealed back up, that concludes this video. Now, these welds aren't completely done. If you notice those last two patches I made, there's still some gaps in the metal between the patch panel I put in and the actual bodywork of the car. And that's because I'm not going for a concours restoration here. I'm just looking to give those panels a little bit more structural integrity, and I'm gonna go back in and seal up all the gaps with some seam sealer. That way no water can get in, no water can get out. I'll tell you what, the most difficult part has definitely been this reforming of this wheel arch into this rocker panel. There was a lot more steps there than I was anticipating. It took a lot of time, but I'm glad I did it because now it is strong metal there and it should be good to go for a long time. So in the next video, I'm going to be addressing the hole that's in the rear valence where that battery tray has drained into the trunk and rotted a hole out there. I'm also going to repair the passenger side rocker panel by the rear door. There's a nice hole there. That should finish up the cosmetic related welding that I'll have to do. So I'd like to just take care of that and be done with it. And then finally, once all of that is done, it'll be a separate video. I'm going to repair those holes that are in the passenger side rear wheel well that was caused by that fuel tank vent line cover. I'm also gonna have to create a new cover, so we'll see how that goes. This has been a trying experiment to say the least with all this welding, but I think it's turning out okay. Overall, the car will be better off than when I started anyways. So I want to thank you guys for hanging in there with me. I know it's not always the most riveting looking stuff, but that's what you got to do if you want to get this car like this back on the road. So take care, and we'll see you guys again soon.